morning. First, it's a pleasure and honor for me to be here among all of you, some of the best coaches and trainers and officials, squash officials worldwide. It's a pleasure. I'm going to talk about two things today, just to brief you about the presentation. First part is going to be more about a theoretical part, about the history and the rise of the Egyptian squash. How did it happen through the last 20-25 years? That's going to be the first part. I did part of it in the last WSF AGM. I'm going to brief you on this. That will be the first part of the presentation, and then I'll move to the junior development in Egypt as well, and how they try to maintain our dominance of the game. That's the presentation outline. I'm going to talk about the history of the Egyptian squash, our rise, the dominance, and the reasons for this, and then we'll move to the junior development in Egypt. I'm going to talk about a sample of the work. It's the work that I do in my own academy. I don't want to talk a lot about myself. I'm a WSF certified coach. I'm a former national Egyptian coach, national Egyptian champion, and twice world champion with the Egyptian team. First, about the history of the Egyptian squash. Egypt was one of the first countries. The Egyptian Federation is almost 100 years old now. Founded in 1931, it was one of the first federations launched worldwide. A brief about our pioneers, British Open champions, Abdel Fattah won the British Open from 1932 to 1937, Mahmoud Abdel Karim from 1947 to 1950, Abdel Fattah Abu Talib from 1964 to 1966. For sure, we had many champions and many good players throughout the 70s, the 80s, but the real rise of the Egyptian squash, if we can call it, started with the foundation of the Egyptian junior teams, men and women juniors, in the 80s. Coach Abdelwahid Abdelaziz, who died last year, he's the one who founded the first Egyptian junior team in the 80s, and I had the pleasure to be one of the players then. And Dr. Samiha Abul Majd also died last year. She was the one who founded the women team, the junior women team. The results started in the 90s, early 90s. We had our first win, our first world win, which was the World Junior Men in 1954 in New Zealand. That was my team. I played the final of the individual with Ahmed Barada. That was the first time that two Egyptians played in the final, and we won the team's event. That was a huge boost for Egyptian squash. Matches were live on TV. It gave us a very big boost. Then the same team, 5 years later, we won our first ever World Teams Men event. Same team was myself and Ahmed Barada, and we had Amir Wagih and Amr Shabana as a junior. At that time, we won the World Teams in 1999 in Cairo. That was also a huge boost for Egyptian squash, because the tournament was played in Cairo. Cairo Stadium was filled from the first day to the last day. It was packed. Matches were live on TV every night. Everyone was following squash. We had many officials, many top officials following the matches. It was a huge boost also for squash in Egypt. Then the women result and the junior, the girls results starting following. Also, Egypt hosted the World Junior Women in 2003. Also, the first time the final, the individual final, also with two Egyptians, with Omar ElBorolossy and Omar ElBorolossy, and we won the team's event as well. Also, 5 years later, the exact thing happened with the girls. They won the juniors. 5 years later, also in Egypt and in Cairo, they won the seniors, the women teams in 2008. That was also the first time that we won a women event in any sport, not only in squash. It continued as we started Al-Ahram tournaments in the 90s. The launch of Al-Ahram tournaments, the great venue, as you're already seeing this week again, was the relaunch of the tournament, but the first time the tournament was held was mid-90s or 95 and continued for 5 years in a row. That has also another huge boost for the Egyptian squash, also live on TV, backed every night. That was the time of Ahmed Barada winning matches and winning the event many times. It was also very good for Egyptian squash. They did it yearly, and it was covered very well from the media. It gave a very big boost for Egyptian squash as well. At this time, as I said, also not the best backhand, but that's a photo of President Mubarak. He was a big squash fan. Squash was really boosted by the Egyptian media. Only, or the main result of President Mubarak, who liked to play squash and he was a big squash fan. But the media followed this, and everyone, like we had when we played the World Championships in Egypt, we had ministers there, we had his sons in the spectators area watching live matches every day. But it gave a huge media coverage, not to cover the sport, but to cover the officials. But we benefited from it. But it's really we benefited from the political setup at this time. It was really also very good for squash at that time. And after every big win for World Championship, we used to go and meet President Mubarak, and it used to get a very good media coverage as well. I'll move to the dominance. Just few statistics that I've gathered about the dominance of the Egyptians now for the world squash in the last 25 years. And I claim that there is no single country that dominated or is dominating a sport like Egypt is dominating squash these days. The only other competitor is maybe China in the table tennis. I was comparing the statistics. Just to talk about the rankings, we have now 50% of the top 10 PSA players, men and women, are Egyptians. 6 out of the top 10 in the men, including all top 4. 4 out of the top 10, including all top 3. Very soon, actually, you will have top 5 Egyptian women. With Hania Hamami, probably in 2 or 3 months, she's going to move to number 5 in the ranking. It's going to be 1 to 5 in the women. In this, also talking about Hania, this will be the first time that we have 4 out of 4 Egyptian girls in the World Women Open Championships. 4 out of 4. This is the first time that it happens in the individual championships. About the Egyptian team. Also, this record in 25 years. We have 23 world team titles in exactly 25 years. It's about an average of one world title every year for the Egyptian team. 4 men titles, 4 women titles, 6 junior men titles, 9 junior women titles. Our top juniors. 27 world individual junior titles, also in 25 years. In the boys, we have 10 world junior champions. Some of them won it twice. Ahmed Barada, and Ahmed Faizi, Karim Darwish, Rami Ashur, Ahmed Shurtagi, Ahmed Khaled, Marwan Shurtagi, Karim Hamami, Marwan Tariq, and Mustafa Atta. Many of them won it twice. We have 8 world junior champions in the girls. Omar ElBorolossy, Ramim El-Wileli, Nush Shirbini, نور الطيب، حبيبة محمد، نوران جوهر، روان العربي، هانية حمامي. Our top professionals, 8 world number ones. 6 of them are world champions. Amr Shabana, former world number 1, 4 times world champion. Karim Darwish, former world number 1. Rami Ashur, former world number 1 and 3 times world champion. Karim Abdel Gawad, former world number 1 and world champion. Mohammed Shourbagi, former world number 1 and world champion. Ali Farag, current world number 1. They're all playing. They're all still playing. This is all in the same. This is in the last 7-8 years, not in the last 25 years. We have those 6 world champions and those 8 number ones. I'm going to move to the girls as well. They're all in the same in the last 7-8 years. The girls, Ranim El-Waleli, current number 1 and world champion, and Noor Shirbini, former world number 1 and 3 times world champion. And now move to talk more about the real reasons. I've talked about how it happened briefly, how the rise happened. Talk more about the reasons. First reason, say we call it the Egyptian style, the creativity and the attitude. Our culture is we're very creative. I can say we're not very disciplined actually, but we don't play the standard game in any sport. But this suits squash very well because squash is a creative sport. Squash is a multi-dimension sport. We have walls, we have the glass, we have the floor, we have many dimensions, but it opens many ideas to the creativity of the players. But this really, I think it suits the Egyptian personality because we like to be different, we like to be creative. Sometimes we like to show off, but this is really suitable for the squash game, and this really changed the squash game. The other thing about it's the role models, the former champions and the coaches. One of the big advantages that happened in Egypt, and it didn't happen in many other countries, that most of the world champions, most of the former players, the Egyptian ones, they came back to coaching. They came back to coach the clubs, the private clubs, or the Egyptian national team. So they gave their experience back to the younger players. Many of the other countries, in Pakistan, in Australia, in England, you find most of the former world champions or most of the former top players, they either moved to other countries or they even stopped and they're away from squash. They're working in the corporate life. In Egypt, most of us, we came back to the sport. Even if I have an engineering degree. I didn't work as an engineer. I came back and I have my own academy and I'm coaching squash. Amir Wadi is coaching squash. You see, this is Amr Shabana coaching Noor Shirbini. The other photo is with myself and Mohammed Shourbagi coaching Rawan Al-Arabi last year. And many Egyptian champions, they came back to the game and give their experience to the younger generation. But this is another big factor. The other thing is the availability. We had maybe 20 years ago, we didn't have 10 or 20% of the number of courts and clubs in Egypt. After this rise and the world championships and the televised tournaments, many clubs and especially private clubs were built, many courts were built. The sport became more available. It used to be a really elite sports, maybe in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Now it's not really. It's a bit expensive sport. It's not for everyone, but if you socially, it's not like a A-class sport anymore. It's A, B, and C class sport. But the availability of the courts and the clubs give a chance to more people to practice and start playing with squash. Another reason that no one really talks about, it's the decline and the weakening of the international competition. We cannot claim that Egypt is that dominant only because the Egyptians are very good. At the same time that the squash became very popular in Egypt, same time it became less popular in Europe, for example. Same time that for political reasons the Pakistan squash almost died. Same time that the squash in Australia, the good Australian players, they all traveled, stayed in the States or in Europe, and things are dying in Australia as well. So the main competitors in the squash in the 80s, it was Pakistan, England, and Australia, and some few good players from Europe. The main competitors are declining and weakening at the same time that it's booming in Egypt. So we cannot claim that it's only Egyptians became better. Also, the competition is not as hard as in the 70s and in the 80s. Now the competition is starting in the juniors in new places, like in Malaysia, in Hong Kong, in India. Like in Asia now they're more competitive in the juniors, and the US also is starting. It's new places, right? It's a transition period. The old competition went down. The new competition, there is still rising, still picking up. But we're filling the space now. Our rise came in a perfect timing actually. But this is part of the reason as well. Another thing is the local competition here, the Egyptian local competitions, the tournaments and the leagues. Very, very popular. You'll find junior tournaments with more than 150 players in each draw. You'll find 1,000 or more than 1,000 juniors playing the tournament every 2 weeks. The local competition is very competitive, and it really creates the competitive edge in the players when they go and play international tournaments. It's actually much easier than what they face locally. Less players, less competitive matches. But the junior players are raised in a very competitive culture here. When they go abroad, they find it easier. They don't panic. They're used to the pressure and stress. Last but not least, the parents, the Egyptian parents. They're obsessed. They have a huge passion for the sport. One of the things maybe that made squash lucky in Egypt is that Egypt is not that good in many sports. It's not like in the US or in Europe where you have, like, if you have your son or daughter, if you're living in Europe or in the US, you're thinking about 10 or 15 kind of sports that you want to enroll your son or your daughter into to play sports. They are world champions in many sports. The team sports, for example, are a big competitor. In Egypt, everyone knows now that if you want your son or daughter to be a world level player or a world champion, squash is the sport to put your son or daughter in. But the parents, they push their kids to squash now, just maybe out of greed sometimes, but out of not only, I don't mean greed by financial greed, but they're tempted that their sons and daughters are going to be world champions. We don't have real competition from other sports in Egypt. All the other sports, maybe they play for when they're young, they learn swimming or gymnastics just to be fit, and then they go to squash after that. They're not competing with other sports. And the parents really are a big I'm putting an example of the Shorbagi family and how close they are. It's also our culture and our habits. The families and the parents are very close to the kids, even to the players, even when they grow old. They keep pushing, they keep supporting, they go to the tournaments with them, they keep pushing them, and this is another edge that's very different from the Western culture. That the parents, they keep pushing their kids and they keep pushing the pros after them. Okay, that's already talked about what happened, how did it happen. I'm going to move to the junior development, the current junior development. That's what's happening. And give you some numbers and how things are going now. The new thing that happened in the last maybe 10 years is also the rise of the private clubs. The private clubs and the private academies. I'll give you an example of just 5 of them. The Black Ball Club, the new foundation, they have 16 courts. Wadi Degla, they have 5 branches, more than 30 squash courts. Alexandria Sporting, they have 12 courts. Smoha Club in Alexandria, they have 10 courts. And my own academy, I have 8 branches now also with more than 30 courts. Only those 5 clubs and academies, they have around more than 100 squash courts, and they have more than 3,000 juniors. And you can quote me on that. Only those 5 entities, they have 3,000 junior players aging from 5 years old to 15. The age of planning and the age of competing as juniors. It's just like group photos of some of the branches, the Black Ball and Wadi Degla and my own academy. 3,000 kids training almost full time. They're not professionals, but they go to school and they come to training in the afternoons, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a week. But you can imagine out of those 3,000 juniors, how many champions you get out of them. This is the real scale. The other thing, which is very also different from what's happening in Europe or anywhere else in the other squash countries, is the local competition at the time. I'm going to talk more about the national junior tournaments. The national junior circuit now, it has more than maybe 25 tournaments. Every club and every academy, they have a yearly national event. We're approaching 30 tournaments per year, per season. Every tournament, it's more than 1,000 players. 1,000 to 1,500 players from under 11 to under 19. Under 11 and under 13 draws are at least 240, 250 players, girls, and 240, 250 boys and girls. So we get in every tournament, you have at least 400 players under 11, 400 players under 13, and a bit less in the under 15, 17, and 19. But you get more than 1,000 players competing in the local junior tournaments that are ranked in the Egyptian Squash Federation. This is bigger than it's bigger than the PSA. It's for a junior. They play tournament average every 2 or 3 weeks, or a weekend every 2 or 3 weeks. You get like to play 4 qualification matches to reach the main draw. Like my daughter, she plays under 11. She needs to win 4 matches to qualify for the main draw in a very local tournament in my academy or in the Gezira Club or in Heliopolis Club or in Alexandria anyway. Okay. This is much bigger than the British Open, than the US Open, than the Hong Kong Open, than any international junior tournament. The number of matches, the stress, the competition, it's huge. But really kids, when they go to the international tournaments, they're very at ease. It's very normal for them. playing 2 matches a day. They're used to it, playing under stress with like 20 people watching. They're already in the local tournament. Sometimes you have 100 people watching the junior match. It's noisy, it's passionate, it's intense. If you really want to have a good idea about the Egyptian squash, you need to attend the junior tournaments, the local junior tournaments. Very intense and very passionate. You'll find the parents, everyone, the referees, the coaches, the other teammates. It's really intense. It brings the competitiveness in the players, and it builds their character to compete on the international level. Also the junior league. Not in many countries they have a real junior league, like a professional league. It's one of the things that were not just introduced to Egypt, actually maybe for the last 15, 20 years. We do not have a junior league, a very old league, but now the junior league now also, it is stronger than the professional league. Also we have leagues from under 11 to under 19 for boys and girls, also three boys and 3 girls for each age group. All clubs are competing in the league. Also, it's very competitive. The clubs are getting very competitive in this. We started to have like a market for the junior players, because clubs are starting to tempt players to move to play for the other clubs like the professional. You'll find a club talking to a player, to an 11 or 12 years old player parent, to move to the other club in the next season for a contract with a certain amount, or to tempt him with like giving him like travel tickets for a few junior tournaments abroad. We're starting to have a real market for Egyptian juniors, moving from clubs to the other, and clubs starting to have actually some conflicts with the players moving from one club to another. And now the federation is starting to have rules for the moving players from one club to another, and allowing a maximum number of players to move. It's like the professional soccer leagues abroad. It's very competitive. Each club now needs to have at least 50 players, boys and girls, to have the certain number of players enough to build the team for the age group. It also forces the clubs to keep working from the junior level to have the good players for the league. Also, it's one of the factors that's really developing the juniors and developing the game in Egypt. But the local competition is huge. Now this is a huge advantage that's maintaining the Egyptian really dominance for the game, maybe for the next also 10 years or so. But this is something that's really good for the game now. Then last thing I want to talk about, this is a sample of, this is my own technical program. Also, it's a sample of many of the Egyptian clubs now. They're starting to have a real structured program, not just having your kids or your boy or girl coming to the coach and pay for a private lesson, and then the coach just give him the lesson and he goes back home. Most of the clubs now, they have structured program. So I'm going to talk about my own. This is the one that I worked on and I know about. So I'm going to give you also a brief about it. We've been working now for almost 15 years. I did this technical program with my technical director at that time was Hisham Al-Attar, who lives now in the States. The academy has, it's one of the first and most detailed technical squash curriculum. It's like a curriculum, a program in the world. It has 6 levels, 6 progressive levels. Each level has its own training exercises, its own drills, its own skills that the kid needs to learn in every level. like level 1 is the beginner, and then level 6 is the highest level with the competition level. And we have specific coaches and trainers for each level. Like I have the kids categorized into levels. For example, in one of the branches, I have around 200 kids in one of the academy branches, 30 to 40 kids in each level. But I have like 2 trainers for level 1, another 2 trainers for level 2, another 2 trainers for level 3. And we train the coaches on these specific skills for this specific level to move to the next level. But they know exactly what they're doing. The time of the session different, like the level 1 is like a 30-minute session for 2 players, level 2 is like 45 minutes session 3 times a week, level 3, and it keeps the time of the training keep increasing, and the number of sessions per week keep increasing till reaching full-time training with 6 days a week for squash and fitness. So we have the players categorized, the trainers as well categorized. We do evaluation for all the kids quarterly, every 3 months. I do it myself. This is my main thing in the academy. We watch the kids. We have a brief report about the skills that they needed to accomplish for this level. And we have like, okay, this is like pass, this is good, this is needs more improvement, this is still not good. And they're either ready to move to the next level, or they stay at the same level and have another quarter at the same level with the same training. And then part of their motivation thing, we give them like certificates, and they have their certificates like they passed this certain level at this date, and they're moving to the next level. This really helps us to organize things, and the kids and the parents, they know exactly where they are. For example, when they actually have starting level 4, they start to learn about the game, about the serve, about returning the serve. Before level 4, they don't play any games. They just drills. I'm gonna show you in the next slide just an example of level 2, for example. But we know exactly. So when a parent asks when will my son or when will my daughter is gonna start playing tournaments, we say starting level 4, we're gonna teach them how to play a game. Starting level 5, we will register them in the federation and they can start playing tournaments. But it's not by age, it's by training level, by having enough skills to compete or to move to the other level. This is just a sample because we're not going to go through all the level. I just need to talk more about the concept. This is, for example, level 2 in the academy. So we have the set of skills like holding the racket, backswing and racket preparation, position of the legs, swing and follow through for backhand and forehand, correct use of the wrist, hitting the ball with 1 step, hitting the ball with 2 steps from the tee, and then hitting the ball with 2 steps from the back of the court. This is for like a level 2 package. This is what they need to acquire in level 2 to move to level 3. And this is what they are tested for to move to the next level. And we show them, like I sit with the coaches before they work, when they come before that, and I evaluate the coaches first, the trainers. And when I said, okay, you're gonna work in this level, those are the sets of skills that you need to teach the kids in this level. And this is what they're gonna be evaluated for at the end of the